1. The best way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Here's what that really means. Actions build momentum, not ideas alone. 2. Don't let yesterday take up too much of today. This quote reminds us that let go of the past to focus on what you can create now. 3. It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get up. This quote reminds us that true strength lies in resilience. 4. If you are working on something exciting, it will keep you motivated. This quote reminds us that passion fuels long-term effort. 5. Success is not in what you have, but who you are. This quote reminds us that character matters more than achievements. 6. Creativity is intelligence having fun. This quote reminds us that smart work can be joyful. 7. Do what you can with all you have wherever you are. Here's what that really means. Don't wait for perfect conditions, start now. 8. You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. This quote reminds us that age is no barrier to ambition. 9. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Here's what that really means. Fear guards your biggest opportunities. 10. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. This quote reminds us that keep going, progress is ongoing. 11. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. This quote reminds us that struggles shape greatness. 12. Believe in yourself and all that you are. This quote reminds us that confidence unlocks potential. 13. What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. This quote reminds us that growth is the real reward. 14. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow is our doubts of today. This quote reminds us that belief determines your future. 15. Do not wait to strike till the iron is hot, but make it hot by striking. This quote reminds us that action creates opportunity. 16. Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. This quote reminds us that every effort has meaning. 17. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. This quote reminds us that habits make progress. 18. Don't be pushed around by the fears in your mind. Be led by the dreams in your heart. This quote reminds us that let vision guide you, not fear. 19. Opportunities don't happen. You create them. This quote reminds us that take action to build success. 20. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. This quote reminds us that dreams are the blueprint for reality. 21. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. This quote reminds us that be true to yourself. 22. Don't watch the clock, do what it does. Keep going. This quote reminds us that stay consistent and focused. 23. A goal without a plan is just a wish. This quote reminds us that planning brings dreams to life. 24. It always seems impossible until it's done. This quote reminds us that action reveals possibility. 25. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. This quote reminds us that begin with what's within reach. 26. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. This quote reminds us that small efforts compound into greatness. 27. Don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. This quote reminds us that endure to achieve. 28. A winner is a dreamer who never gives up. This quote reminds us that perseverance wins. 29. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. This quote reminds us that thoughts shape your life. 30. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. This quote reminds us that repetition builds mastery. 31. A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. This quote reminds us that failure is proof of effort. 32. Happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions. This quote reminds us that joy is self-created. 33. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. This quote reminds us that progress begins with action. 34. Success usually comes to those who are too busy to be looking for it. This quote reminds us that focus creates results. 35. Don't wait. The time will never be just right. This quote reminds us that start now, adjust later. 36. Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. This quote reminds us that attitude matters most. 37. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. This quote reminds us that risk nothing, gain nothing. 38. There is only one way to avoid criticism. Do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. This quote reminds us that criticism is part of action. 39. Success is doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. This quote reminds us that mastery lies in consistency. 40. If you're going through hell, keep going. This quote reminds us that don't stop during struggle. 41. I am not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. This quote reminds us that you have the power to choose. 42. Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. This quote reminds us that authenticity is your superpower. 43. Do what makes your soul shine. This quote reminds us that choose fulfillment. 44. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. This quote reminds us that small steps lead to big change. 45. Great things never come from comfort zones. This quote reminds us that growth requires discomfort. 46. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness. This quote reminds us that failure is a tool, not a defeat. 47. Stay away from those people who try to disparage your ambitions. This quote reminds us that protect your vision from negativity. 48. Success doesn't come to you, you go to it. This quote reminds us that move toward your goals. 49. Don't count the days, make the days count. This quote reminds us that live intentionally. 50. Life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. This quote reminds us that mindset is everything. 51. Limit your always and your nevers. This quote reminds us that avoid rigid thinking to stay open to growth. 52. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. This quote reminds us that spread kindness wherever you go. 53. You do not find the happy life. You make it. This quote reminds us that happiness is actively created. 54. In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. This quote reminds us that struggles contain seeds of growth. 55. The only way to achieve the impossible is to believe it is possible. This quote reminds us that belief breaks barriers. 56. The harder you work for something, the greater you'll feel when you achieve it. This quote reminds us that earned success is deeply rewarding. 57. Dream big and dare to fail. This quote reminds us that bold dreams come with risk. Embrace it. 58. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined. This quote reminds us that take brave steps toward your vision. 59. Believe you can and you're halfway there. This quote reminds us that confidence is the first key to action. 60. Make each day your masterpiece. This quote reminds us that treat every day as a work of art. 61. Act as though it is impossible to fail. This quote reminds us that carry yourself with certainty. 62. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. This quote reminds us that keep moving forward. 63. Keep your face always toward the sunshine, and shadows will fall behind you. This quote reminds us that focus on the positive. 64. Don't wait for opportunity. Create it. This quote reminds us that be proactive in your pursuits. 65. You must do the things you think you cannot do. This quote reminds us that courage grows through challenge. 66. You can if you think you can. This quote reminds us that mindset fuels success. 67. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. This quote reminds us that inner strength is your greatest resource. 68. Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. This quote reminds us that you are the author of your identity. 69. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist, that is all. This quote reminds us that choose a life of meaning, not mere survival. 70. Keep going. Everything you need will come to you at the perfect time. This quote reminds us that trust in your journey. 71. Your life does not get better by chance, it gets better by change. This quote reminds us that take initiative for improvement. 72. Never give up on a dream just because of the time it will take to accomplish it. The time will pass anyway. This quote reminds us that time is moving, use it wisely. 73. Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great. This quote reminds us that aim for excellence, not comfort. 74. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. This quote reminds us that you have untapped power within. 75. Stop being afraid of what could go wrong and start being excited about what could go right. This quote reminds us that focus on potential, not fear. 76. You become what you believe. This quote reminds us that self-perception shapes destiny. 77. Be so good they can't ignore you. This quote reminds us that excellence demands attention. 78. Hustle in silence and let your success make the noise. This quote reminds us that work hard quietly, shine later. 79. You've got to get up every morning with determination if you're going to go to bed with satisfaction. This quote reminds us that daily effort leads to peace. 80. Don't limit your challenges. Challenge your limits. This quote reminds us that push your boundaries to grow. 81. Don't tell people your plans. Show them your results. This quote reminds us that let action speak louder than words. 82. If you can dream it, you can do it. This quote reminds us that vision leads to manifestation. Thank you for spending this moment with the Mind Shelf. Let this quote stay with you, and may your day be filled with peace and purpose. If it stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Reflect, share, and let's grow together, one thought at a time. What does this quote mean to you? Share your thoughts below. Your words might inspire someone else today. If you'd like more gentle wisdom and soulful reflections, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing mindful community. And if you're watching this as you wind down, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and carry this wisdom into your dreams. Until next time, rest well.